Let me make sure everything works.
Cool. While you're doing this, I'm gonna get my computer charger just to make sure I don't uh, die here.
Oh, okay.
1 second. All right. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're good, dude. You're good, dude. I think everything is running good. Let me check one more time.
Killing.
Okay, I'm going to assume everything is good.
Cool.
Oh, wait. No, no, everything is not good. That's strange. Okay, everything's good.
Good.
Okay, good afternoon, all the people who are watching. My name is Wes Gibson, and we are joined by Ryan Devlin of, born and raised in Florida, represent. Uh, Mr. Ryan Devlin is obviously a professional saxophone player, mostly known for his tenor saxophone playing, who just recently, if I remember correctly, received his master's degree from the New England Conservatory.
Indeed.
He's played with some fantastic musicians like Davis Whitfield Jr., Mike Bonds, Chad L.B., Ravi Coltrane, and he is the co-host of the Hang podcast with Dave Pollock. Say hi, Ryan.
How's it going, everybody?
Okay, I have a series of questions from you, ranging from, sort of basic to some more esoteric stuff. I'm
Cool.
going to start it off with a good one from one of our users, Canon. How did you start playing professionally, like getting out there and gigging?
Well, I had kind of a pipeline because my dad is this professional saxophone player. So even when I started, having an interest in playing this music professionally, he would just take me to gigs with him, and I would get introduced to people that were already playing and had gigs around town and stuff like that. So I would just kind of tag along with him, whether it was like a Disney corporate thing or a big band gig or a comp, whatever. And I met a lot of people through that. And then through him, because he was working full time at Disney and would not always say yes to the freelance gigs, he would give them to me. When he would get the call, he'd be like, "Oh, my son's an up and coming saxophone player, and it would be really cool, to have him because I can't make it, So he was looking out for me then and would like help me kind of, get those opportunities. And then going and meeting people that were my age that were already gigging. There's a great bass player in town. His name's Thomas Milovac, went to UNF and all this stuff. He was gigging at a very young age too. And when I met him, I was able to make that connection and now we're best friends and we play all around the world together and it's really cool. So just meeting people and then I was really lucky with having my dad be on the scene too.
Awesome. Yeah, it's helpful having musical family. My dad is a
Totally.
guitarist who
Hmm.
started playing at Virginia Tech, and it's been really cool seeing some of the connections that he made going to UNF. I mean, half the professors are still the same professors that I have right now,
Right.
and it's cool being able to see everybody around town. You've played with Lumpkin a fair few
Yeah.
times. My
Yeah.
dad played with Lumpkin when he was still at DA, when
Really?
he was a little kid.
No way.
This like 17-year-old playing some funk gigs and stuff.
There you go.
Yeah, it's big. So it's cool to be able to meet all those guys. That
Yeah, absolutely.
familial connection, useful. I think this is a good question for me in particular. This is from one of our users, Fish. Do you have any advice for keeping like your practice consistent with a super fluctuating schedule if you're having to do a bunch of stuff or moving around a bunch?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I was a really diligent practicer. Like I, try to do my 2 to 4 hours a day, that was a big thing for me. Just getting hours on the horn was big. Uh, and then once I kind of quote unquote turned professional, like full time, it is more sporadic. But the thing about being at least for me, the thing about being a freelance musician, specifically a improvising jazz musician, is that I'm never not practicing. You know what I mean? Like when I'm listening to music, I'm practicing. One of my favorite things to listen to nowadays are like solo piano tracks. Like there's a couple of great albums that I've been checking out. Like Larry Golding's has a couple great ones where it's just solo piano and like reharms of tunes. And I'm trying to figure them out, when I'm listening to them.
Yeah.
Also, I love listening to like a cappella groups that have really good writing, like just listening to the counterpoint of it all and that kind of thing. So active listening is a big part of my practicing. That's just every day.
Yeah.
And like when I'm on the road and like on a plane or whatever, like I'm listening to things while I'm on the plane, trying to learn from Coltrane, trying to learn from whoever I'm checking out.
Hmm.
And that to me is just a part of my daily routine. So even if I'm not putting hours on the saxophone, I'm putting hours in listening to the saxophone and trying to get things into my ear and into my head that maybe normally wouldn't be if I was just shedding like scales or whatever, like always
Yeah.
listening. So
Yeah.
I try and stay motivated with that. And then when I am off the road for a while, I, try and do my couple hours every other day or whatever, just to stay fresh. But it's a lot of listening nowadays.
Yeah. Definitely makes sense. Very useful for the active professional traveling musician. Lots of
Hmm.
listening. This is from one of our users, High Octane Menthol. In a situation where you do get to sit down and actually shed for a little while, what do you think constitutes a useful practice session to you?
Yeah, so I do in three parts. One is scale patterns and like melodic cells. So I'll do like cross arpeggios is a big thing, diatonic fourths, major scales, melodic minor scales, and then I do like chromatic and melodic cells. So 4 note cells throughout all the horn, play them in different sequences, minor thirds, perfect fourths, that kind of thing. And then I'll probably do that for like 15 minutes max. Sometimes I do overtones, sometimes I don't. But I'll do that, full range scale stuff. So go up into the altissimo, go down into the spatula keys, all that stuff. And then the second block, which is probably the longest block, is like transcription and vocabulary learning, whether that's like how to play a certain substitution on a change, if I'm transcribing a thing from somebody. And then the third block is application. So whatever I practice during the second portion, I just go to a tune. Mainly tunes that I'm really familiar with. So like I'll do it on like blueses, bird blueses, rhythm changes, modal tune, whatever. But I'm just trying to figure out how I can immediately work on in like a tune like what I just learned. Just a quick application process.
Yeah.
So like if I have 2 hours, like 15 minutes of the 2 hours or 20 minutes of the 2 hours is warming up with the scales and stuff. And then like an hour and a half is probably on transcribing. And then the last part is on the application.
Yeah. Very useful. Okay. This is one for all the students who are listening. Obviously, you and I, we're still students in a way, but younger guys in particular. What do you think are some traps that you see younger students fall into as saxophonists?
Um, Traps. Okay. I would say, oh yeah, I think a big one is like not a lot of people know that this is a lifetime journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, some people at a younger age get it really quickly. Some people don't. Everybody has their own progression and their own, kind of timeline when it comes to that. Everybody has their own way of learning. And it took me probably until midway through college to realize how I process information and to do a way that fits me that I can be the most productive. And so I think some students, because of social media and because of all this stuff, like all you need is like a 30-second clip to, to sound good or whatever. And it's like, yeah, sure, it's a good way to get a following. It's a good way to, build a brand for yourself or whatever, but it's a shallow kind of way of doing it.
Yeah.
And like when I started posting on Instagram, it was all about practicing and all about, you know, a goal that I had set for myself that day to
Yeah.
sound good on. You know what I mean? Like it had nothing to do with, I didn't care if 10 people watched it or 100,000 people watched it. Like it didn't matter to me. I was just doing it to do it. And I think people related to that. And also Instagram, when I first started posting it, like the algorithm was like way different.
Yeah.
So it was like, if you were following me and I posted at 5 o'clock, you would see my post at 5 o'clock. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Nowadays, it's like you see my post from 3 weeks ago. Like I have people that were like, "Oh my God, you're in New York right now," and it was like 2 weeks ago. I was
Yeah.
like, "Nah, man." So all that to be said, like I think it's really like it's a double-edged sword because it's so great to have all this content on Instagram and things, and you can see people from all over the world play music. But until you go see them play a real concert or something like that, like you have no idea what they actually sound like.
Yeah.
And that 30-second clip could be edited and, the 40th take of that, whatever.
Yeah.
And not to like vibe that, but like that's not what our Mount Rushmore jazz musicians, did, right?
Yeah.
It was deeper than that. So I
Yeah.
would say that that's a big thing that is easy to fall into. Is like, oh man, all I need is this 1 minute or 30 second. But if you strive for a 3 minute solo, or or not even that, like just striving to sound better, learn more about the music, learn the history, you're gonna sound better no matter what,
Yeah.
rather than just chasing the Instagram thing. So that's what I would say for the trap stuff.
Okay. You were talking about transcription and language learning. This applies to that. This is from a fellow UNF student named Gio. What did you do to make it so when you were learning language and learning vocabulary to make it sound less like you were, plugging stuff in directly? And how did you like start to absorb that material and then be able to actually improvise with it, you know?
Yeah. So I have with my students and stuff, I have a process called improvising with vocabulary, because that's kind of what we do when we're in a specific idiom of jazz, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different versions of the language and, eras and all that stuff. But I think something that's really beautiful about this music that it is a language. And just like you learn any language, you have to learn how to kind of plug and play in the practice room a little bit. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to transcribing something, like just copy paste just for the practicing part. And then the more comfortable you get with that piece of language, it becomes more of like disguising where it came from. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to like my solos and stuff, and I'm flattered when anybody transcribes one of my solos. It's very nice. And when I look at my solos, I mean, I could tell you exactly where I got a lot of the information,
Yeah.
but it's been disguised over the years with my own interpretation and other people's influence on me and my music. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I probably transcribed the most, maybe Steve Grossman solos out of anybody else. Maybe I did a lot of Sonny Rollins when I was studying with Chad, just for foundational language.
Yeah.
And Michael Brecker stuff, Chris Potter stuff, like they're all there, and they are all have marinated in my head over the years and have kind of uh, manipulated and whatnot to kind of make my own version of what they are. But when I was younger, I mean, I was definitely in the practice room specifically, like just playing parts of solos and then improvising around them. Like
Yeah.
with my students, we usually do a transcription every other week or whatever. And so the first week is just learning the solo, and then the second week is we rewrite the solo in our version of it. So we'll take like one of my favorites to do is John Coltrane's on "I Hear a Rhapsody," because he plays a lot of the same ideas just in different places and whatnot.
Hmm.
So we'll take like his second A section and play it first, and then put the first A section on the second A section, and then like we flip and flop, and then eventually we get to a point where it's like, okay, only play the first four bars of the Coltrane solo, and then you solo after that, and like you're kind of like ingraining the solo in with your own vocabulary to the point where then it becomes, oh, you're not quoting Coltrane, you just play in the style of Coltrane,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's very useful. I think this is a question that a lot of students like ask themselves. How do like you as a musician, and I don't mean you in particular, but like musicians in general, the people who are really well known, how do you think that they differentiate themselves from the other musicians around them? Because you can't throw rock without hitting a talented jazz saxophonist anymore. How do you think people get to the point where they're able to differentiate themselves?
Well, I think like in human nature, all of our personalities are different. And one of my mentors in school was Jerry Bergonzi, and he always would say to me, you play who you are. Can't get away from that. Can't do it. Because really, the saxophone and uh, music in general, or I mean, the saxophone or just any musical instrument that you're improvising with, is an extension of you. You know, and for me, like a big lesson I had with Berganzi was, I remember I came into my lesson, I was so down and depressed about my playing. I was just like, and I kind of just like let it out, and I was just like, Jerry, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm practicing a lot, but I feel like I sound like crap and all this stuff. And he was like, well, let's take a deeper look into why you feel that way, you know. And so it was kind of like a little therapy session for me. And he was like, and at the end of the lesson, after we talked it out, he goes, Ryan, if you want to change your playing, you got to change who you are.
Huh.
And I was like, whoa, you know. So I kind of took a look at myself and tried to start improving other parts of my life, like trying to be healthier, trying to exercise more, trying to be out in the sun more often, like all these things, not be locked in on my screen all the time, like all
Yeah.
these little things, how to not be so anxious or whatever. And I feel like I play my best when I feel the best about myself and the things around me. And he really, you know, was a big influence on me in that part of my life. And I feel like, I'm way more confident in myself now. I'm way more confident in my ability. I trust my ability way more. So when I go play a gig that I'm maybe a little squirrely on, I always am like, Ryan, you've put in the time. You're a good musician. Just go out there and play. Like, don't worry. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And so those things. So to go back to your question is, I think it's inevitable that we'll sound different because it's almost impossible to sound the same. And everybody plays their personality, and it's impossible to be this a mirror image of somebody,
Yeah.
whether you want to be or not. So the short answer is, I think no matter what. But the longer answer is, if you think that if you don't have your own personality on the horn, or you're not happy about the personality and the language that you have on the horn, maybe look at your daily life and how you feel about yourself in general, and work on that and see how that affects your playing and the way that you think about it.
That's really insightful. I don't think I'd ever thought of that that way. That's
Berganzi, man, he's
Berganzi.
he's the goat. He's Yoda.
You, as a musician at a relatively young age, you've had a lot of incredible opportunities. I've heard that when Berganzi's busy, you're able to do some of his lessons at New England
Yep,
Conservatory.
part-time faculty.
You jump around from Florida to Boston, you're gigging everywhere. What do you think that you did to get a lot of these opportunities? Besides shedding your ass off, which obviously you did.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably number one is I've put in a lot of hours on the horn and the music. But I think, it kind of boils down to, like, this is a business. I run my own business. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
being a freelance musician is partly just Ryan Devlin LLC.
Yeah.
Like, everything that I put out there is a reflection of me and my brand. Everything that every person that I meet, I try and meet them as if it's just an opportunity. I want to be not be fake about it, but,
Yeah.
like, I know that there is opportunity to work when I meet a new musician and all this stuff. And I think I've been super lucky to be like right person, right place, right time in certain situations. And sometimes, and I've learned this over the years, sometimes saying no to something is just as good as saying yes. If you don't think you're going to spread yourself too thin and be known as like the guy that says yes to everything, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that can come at a cost as well. So with all that being said, I think I've just tried to be myself and be personal and be personable and be kind and humble, with still being confident in my ability, and being on time, not showing up late, trying not to cancel last minute unless I absolutely have to. All those things to help me work with people that have good opportunities and have given me opportunities and all that stuff. To, just trying to be a good person overall, I think is the number one thing. And people want to work with people that don't give them headaches. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just want to get to the gig, do my thing, be happy, and then leave happy. Is
Yeah.
the goal.
Yeah.
So
That's the goal. You kind of already said this earlier when I asked you, what do you practice generally? I'm going to ask it just if there's anything else that you're working on in particular, like more specific. What are you transcribing right now? Something like that.
yeah, man, I was checking out some of these like later Coltrane records recently, like um, Live at the Half Note, 1965, I believe. And I've been checking out his like one up, one down solo, which is like 13 minutes long. It's kind of crazy, but there's like certain aspects of it that I've been checking out. There's a couple Steve Grossman solos I've been kind of going back to from like a couple like live recordings. There's one in specific from 1973 in Boston,
Yeah.
where it's the same. It's like the Elvin Jones Lighthouse Band, but it's like a year later, so it's kind of cool to hear certain developmental phases of his playing. I've been listening to a lot of singers. Like I mean, Ella Fitzgerald, I think is my favorite like vocalist of all time.
Huh.
So listening to how she sings melodies of tunes that I didn't know the lyrics for. Uh, you know, uh, so not necessarily transcribing that, but like listening to it actively and trying to cop how she sings melodies and improvises melodies and stuff like that. And then this recording of "I Want to Talk About You" from a different Live at the Half Note recording from a couple years earlier. I think it's '63. And Coltrane doesn't even like take a very long. I mean, he takes maybe like half of a chorus, but the way he develops it is so beautiful. And then his cadenza at the end is like mastery. So I've
Huh.
been checking that out. So yeah, that's it right now. I've been shedding a lot of piano,
Huh.
trying to get better at piano. I walk bass lines and comp for my students and stuff,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to get better at soloing on piano. So I've been shedding that a little bit too. But yeah,
Good stuff to be shedding. I'm gonna have to check some of those recordings out. I haven't heard a lot of those live Coltrane
Mhm.
recordings. This
Yeah,
is
yeah, it's a great one.
yeah. This is a question from Skringus. What is your favorite standard to play and why?
I love Invitation recently. That's been a good one to play, just because it has like a bunch of different sections to it. It's got kind of like a modal beginning part, and then it's got a lot of changes in the bridge.
Yeah,
Can go from straight eighth to swing, which is cool. So yeah, I'll say Invitation.
invitation. Okay, good simple answer. What are some things that you wish you could have learned sooner in your musical career that somebody would have told you?
More tunes.
More tunes.
More tunes, yeah. I have a very limited tune vocabulary, I feel like, compared to people my age, especially people in New York that are always in New York. Like when I go
Yeah,
to New York, I feel like I'm like, I'll call a tune, or they'll call a tune, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. Give me like one pass, and then I'll play it.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, more tunes, I think. Uh, and maybe also like focusing a little bit more on like playing other saxophones. Like I did that a lot in high school, but from like the last like 6 or 7 years, I've played like 99% tenor saxophone, and I do think that it would be cool to learn tunes, on other horns. I mean, I play a little bit more soprano, but like playing more alto would be cool, just to have that under my belt a little bit more. Um, but yeah, definitely tune learning. That's probably number one. Like
Huh.
I wish at a younger age I would have gotten more of those under my belt.
Yeah, I empathize with that experience. I mean, you go to Smalls and some person calls out, I'm going to throw standard in heavy quotes, some
Right.
like obscure song recorded in 1932 on one album by a guy you've never heard of before, and everybody
Yeah,
else in the
man.
bandstand knows it.
Yep.
You start feeling like, am I insane for not knowing this tune? I guess I am.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is kind of a more particular question. I think listening to you, you've got the wrong notes only. Like that's a big part of, I would say, your brand and your playing style.
Sure.
But listening to you versus a lot of other people who I think are fairly dissonant players, you have a way of playing out that is really instantly identifiable to me. I was
Mm.
wondering if you have any particular harmonic techniques that you think are huge in your approach to adding dissonance.
Good question. Let me think about that. I think like it's hard to be specific because I try and use multiple kinds of ways of going out. But I think from the era of tenor saxophone players that I listen to, it's a lot of like diminished on dominant chords, diminished on major chords, like that dark sound, kind of vibe, and like playing a lot of chromaticism alongside the diminished stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so, learning how to play like the half whole diminished scale in 100 different ways, is kind of like
Yeah.
a big part of my playing. Um, Also, pentatonics is a big part of my language too, and even playing a diatonic phrase with large intervals can sound out.
Yeah.
Like on a or the other thing is like I'll play a pentatonic scale that has two notes that are outside of the chord, but three notes that are inside. So it gives like kind of like this interesting contrast of like, oh, it's in, but it's not. Like like for example, on like a G minor seven chord, you can play like F sharp major pentatonic, which is out, but it also has some notes that are in,
Yeah.
So those things are cool, like studying how the relationship of certain notes and chords and pentatonic scales or whatever kind of scales can rub against the chord and also be inside of the chord. Um, and then, like I said, like it's a lot of diminished language, it's a lot of whole tone language, like those aggressive sounds that really no matter what chord change you play them on, if you play an idea that's strong enough, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'll say is that I don't memorize or play every single chord of a tune. I'm a big like tonality guy.
Yeah.
So like everything to me is a big 5 to 1. No matter what the tune is, no matter what the progression is, I try and find, okay, what's my 5 chord and where's my 1 chord, even if it's disguised.
Yeah.
So like a tune like Sam Rivers like Beatrice, like there's a lot of interesting changes to Beatrice, but for me it's basically like half of the song is like D7 altered for tenor and then it resolves to G. That's how I play that tune. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I played every single chord change to that tune, you
Yeah.
know? And that's how I see it. And what's cool about it is like, if you transcribe my solo on it, like half of it would be really in because there's so many common tones between all the chords and D7 to G. Like a
Yeah.
lot of that tune is just that.
Yeah.
So it's like learning how to conceptualize tonalities in songs rather than thinking about them as like this way. You think about them like this way, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and that's a big part of it too. It's just like knowing where my resolution points are and knowing where I can step out, whether that's 5 chords, whether that's 3 chords, whatever. But that's kind of the way I think about it.
That's really interesting. I'm gonna have to reapproach Beatrice at some point, I think.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
this is an anecdote. I don't know how hip you are. Something you said made me think about this. I don't know how hip you are to the guitarist Robin Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of those dudes who harmonically what he plays isn't super dissonant. It's not
Right.
like really out there, but he uses a bunch of large intervals. He loves fourths,
Uh
and it
huh.
makes it sound kind of dissonant. It's angular,
Yeah.
in a unique way. That reminded me of that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Chris
I'm
Potter too. Chris
Oh
Potter
yeah.
plays a ton of diatonic fourths, and it sounds super out. But when you look at it, it's in. You
Yeah,
know.
it's all in the harmony. This Zoom meeting's almost out of time, so I'm going to ask my final question. The last time I asked somebody this question, the answer was really controversial, and
Okay.
I don't think it's I don't think you're gonna hit I don't think you're gonna say what Sam Dillon said.
Okay.
What is your opinion on classical saxophone?
Oh man, I mean I learned a lot of classical saxophone from when I started playing to the end of my high school. Like I did solo and ensemble every year. My dad plays a lot of classical saxophone, so I had an appreciation for it at a younger age because of him. Uh, but yeah, I mean, most of my technique is good because of my classical saxophone background. Like, at a very young age, I mean, like 10 or 12, I was playing like grade fives and
Yeah,
sixes, sonatas, concertos, like all this stuff, because that's what dad was doing. So that's what I was doing.
yeah,
And up until about 10th grade, I wanted to just be a classical saxophonist. That's all I really cared about. And then in 10th grade, I kind of took a little bit of a switch because I started listening to different kinds of music and whatnot. But yeah, like, man, I think it's fantastic. And one of my close buddies is this saxophone player from Russia. His name's Valentin. And he's probably one of the, if not the best classical saxophone players in the entire world. And man, I mean, his technical facility is just insane. And
it's
his
incredible.
tone is insane. And, you know, it's like, he's a great saxophone player. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't
Yeah,
matter what he's playing. I mean, I'm just astonished at the saxophone that he's playing.
yeah.
How he's doing it. So I don't think it's jive at all. I think it's killing, and I don't necessarily play it anymore. I will sometimes. When I'm over at my dad's house, I'll we'll play a duet or two together. Which is fun, and it gets me back to kind of my roots of when I started playing. But yeah, I think it's killing. I think it's killing.
Out of curiosity, what rep have you done for classical saxophone? Big
I've played
ones.
the Glazunov, the Eber, the Prelude Canes and Finale, the Creston. I'm trying to think about what I played in middle school. Those are all like my high school ones I did.
Yeah,
Um, those are the three. Those are the four off the top of my head. There's this composer, the last name Jacoby. I played the Jacoby one year. Um, I learned all of those Fairling etudes for
yeah,
all state stuff. I
yeah,
learned all of those, um, which was always a pain in the butt, but
yeah,
I did it. But yeah, those are probably the ones that I remember the most.
yeah. There's this. I don't know if you've ever heard it. Phil Woods wrote a classical saxophone sonata,
Yes.
which
Hmm.
is really it's kind of happening. It's
It's
cool.
badass.
It's
I
cool. It's
think I
cool.
think it
It's
is. Yeah.
really cool. They've got like I found like an updated version of the score that they released after Phil Woods died, which I
Oh,
thought was
whoa.
strange because
Yeah.
it's significantly different. They alter the part. Like
Oh, really?
there's like significant like the first line of it in the original score, which is what I was playing off of. Mr. Zentz gave that to me when I was in high school, so I was playing off of that. It
Killer.
starts off on just like D, low D over and over again. And then in the updated score, which I found when I was having to find like an official copy of the piano piece for solo and ensemble. So and I could only find the updated score, and I was like, I saw it. I'm like, it has like movement in the first bar, which it just
Yeah.
doesn't have in the original. I thought that was always strange. Just an anecdote because I love that piece. That was probably the my favorite bit of legit rep that I played in high school.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to plug? I know that you got a new album coming out with Dave Pollock soon, somewhat soon.
Yep, that's yeah, we just recorded that last week. That was a lot of fun. I do have a piece of advice for saxophone players with that. So we recorded that day from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We got everything done, which was cool. I think we were doing 7 or 8 tracks. And then after that, I played a gig, which was at this jazz club in Boston called Wally's. And it's a 2 hour gig with no breaks. And that gig is so loud. And dude, I got home the next day, or I got back to where I was staying the next day, and I completely lost my voice. And then I was sick for like the next week after that. So and I'm still recovering, as you can hear. So don't spread yourself too thin. Now I had a ton of fun, and the gig was
Yeah.
great. And Walter Smith came to the gig, which was
Oh,
really
that's
cool. And
cool.
he had some nice kind words to say, which was very nice. And the band I was playing with was super cool, and so all that was great. But I didn't take care of myself enough to do that, to do all those things. So make sure you don't spread yourself too thin. And then, yeah, so that's coming out. I have my own quartet record that I'm recording in August at this place in Florida called Judson's, this new jazz club. So we're recording that live there. First time there's ever been a live record there. So that's August 24th. Got a lot of new music that I've been writing. So I'm really excited for that. It's going to be mostly originals, which is going to be cool. And then after that, I have a couple gigs in New York with Gene Perla and Billy Hart, which is going to be really great. I'm playing at the Zinc Bar 2 nights with them. And then the following month, I'm playing at Scullers in Boston with that same group. Leo Genovese on piano and Anthony Aldisi also on piano when Leo's not going to be there. So got those things coming up. And then we haven't announced this officially, but we just got the contract. Sidestep, this group that I'm playing in, this two-tenor group, tenor, bass, and drums. We just recorded our record called Blues Clues, came out last year or early this year. We are going international. We're going to Taiwan in December,
Oh, that's
playing
cool.
their jazz festival, and then we're going to Japan after that, which is really exciting.
That's really cool.
And then I'm also going to Paris in December to go do some work with Selmer, which I'm really excited about because I just became an artist with them, so I'm looking forward to working with them more often. So yeah, that's what I got going on the next couple months. This year's going to be super busy. I'm excited to kind of go into the international scene. I'm also going to be in Belize in October. So looking forward to that as well if you're in Belize. So yeah, that's what I got going on, and I hope to see you cats out on the road when I'm around.
I hope to see you too. I'll make sure to come to your show in Florida, definitely, and make as much of a ruckus as possible.
Please do,
Make
please
the
do. Lumpkin's
recording
playing on that too.
make the recording completely unusable. You know.
Perfect, perfect. We
All
love
right.
it.
It was good talking to you, Ryan. Thanks for
You
coming
too,
on. I
bro.
appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Great to talk with you too. Have a good
See you
one.
later, dude.
See ya.